gentlemen, the Civic Center Commission Chair, Corey Atkins.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on this exciting evening for an extraordinary unveiling and a unique public event. My name is Corey Atkins. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce, but I also serve as the current chair of the Civic Center Commission. I will serve as your host and MC for the evening, but before we begin, please join me in thanking our special opening act, the West African Collaborative Percussion Ensemble, percussionists of the Asheville Symphony Youth Orchestra and Mars Hills University. Also, this evening could not be possible without the help of a lot of supporting organizations who are with us tonight. So let's take a moment to thank them. Of course, the City of Asheville, including the Civic Center Commission. This is a volunteer advisory board made up of citizens like yourselves around the city, most of whom are here with us here today. Allegra Marketing, the Asheville Symphony, the Asheville Music Professionals, Celine and Company, Echo Mountain Recording Studio, I Am AVL, New Belgium Brewing Company, Pepsi, and PSAV. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now, the Thomas Wolfe and its needs have been a topic of conversation in this community for decades. But tonight, we begin a real conversation about what sort of performance and cultural center we want and deserve here in our fair city. To give us some context to begin that conversation tonight, we'll soon hear from our own mayor, but we'll also see a conceptual transformation design from our general manager of the facility, Chris Corral. And we'll also hear from a moderated panel of local experts whose voices span the landscape of music, both classical and contemporary, education, both higher and secondary, and economic development, both locally as well as regionally. You know, this building's not just a building. It's a living, breathing testament to our community's cultural legacy. In fact, almost 80 years ago to the date, on January the 8th, 1920, the Asheville Civic Center Music Association presented violinist Yehuda Menuhin, widely considered one of the greatest violinists of the 20th century. Many other notable performers have utilized this building and the stage where I stand today. Bob Hope, Bob Dylan, Emmanuel Axe, Gladys Knight, Jerry Seinfeld, Bon Iver, and Asheville's own Warren Haynes, just to name a few. Now, my next official duty is to introduce our mayor, but if you'll bear with me for a moment, please allow me to tell you a story that actually just happened to me this last week that's fortuitous as well as insightful. I was riding back on an airplane from a trip to Tucson, Arizona for a work conference, and on the last leg of that flight, I was sitting next, it was from Atlanta to Asheville, and I was sitting next to a lovely couple who live here in downtown Asheville. And upon our conversation, I learned that they were coming in from New York City, even though we're on the same last leg. Of course, as you do when you're sitting next to someone on an airplane, we got to talking a little bit. You know, why was I on the airplane? Of course, I told them about my work travel. I inquired as to why they were traveling from New York City. You know, was it for family and friends? Were they coming back from vacation? Was it the end of a long holiday trip? What they told me was that they had flown all the way to New York City from downtown Asheville in order to see Broadway shows. Right? I don't know if anybody's ever heard that before, but it's kind of baffled me because I knew we were going to do this tonight. I was sitting next to them. They had no idea of my connection to this facility at all. So I started to inquire a little bit further. Yes, they do this a couple times a year. They take the expense of getting on an airplane, flying from Asheville Regional Airport. They go to New York City, stay in an expensive hotel in downtown Manhattan. They see at least 3 to 5 shows every time they go, and then they fly back home. My major point for telling you this story here tonight is that there's no reason for anyone in this vibrant community to have to get on an airplane and leave this community to have a world-class cultural experience. And now's the time and now's the place for us to start and begin this and change it. And with that, I want to bring to the stage Asheville Mayor Esther Mannheimer. Esther.
Good evening. It truly is my pleasure to welcome you here tonight. We are overwhelmed by the response. How many of you have come out to hear the presentation and hear the panel tonight? So thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to do this. I do have a purpose here in talking to you, to welcome you and also to introduce to you some of the elected, or all of the elected officials that I'm aware of that are here with us tonight. We have Representative John Ager, and I can't see anything, but he's there, okay. We also have Commissioner Al Whitesides and Joe Belcher, who I think are somewhere around here. And from City Council, we have our Vice Mayor, Gwen Whistler, who is somewhere around here, and Councilwoman Julie Mayfield is here as well. And also our city manager, Deborah Campbell, who just celebrated her 1-year anniversary here in Asheville. Deborah, wave your hand around. This is a project that we have been talking about for decades. Some of you have been a part of that conversation for that long, and so we're appreciative of your participation, and we're hopeful you're going to stick it out with us through this process. We are quickly approaching the day that something has to happen. We're reaching a critical stage. Some would say we've already reached that critical stage in terms of what this infrastructure can handle, and the need to re-up and make a significant investment in it so that it can continue to contribute to the vitality of this city and to enhance our experience as Ashevilleans here in our own town. And not just for Ashevilleans, but also, as you know, many of you come here from around this region to enjoy this wonderful amenity. So to hear more about this, I'm here to introduce you to Chris Corral, who is the general manager of the newly named Harrah's Cherokee Center Asheville. Okay, it doesn't roll off the tongue exactly, but Harrah's Cherokee Center Asheville, which, of course, Thomas Wolfe is a part of.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. For those of you that don't know, I'm Chris Corral. I've been the general manager here for about 7 years. This site has been home to public gathering space and community events for the region for nearly 120 years. Realized in 1902, the City Auditorium opened as a privately owned and operated facility. Unfortunately, it burned down about 1.5 years later. In 1904, a new building and a new name, the Municipal Auditorium, opens. Privately owned, privately operated. By 1909, unfortunately, again, the Asheville Auditorium Company out of business. So the city assumes ownership. And as you can imagine, there was no real plans to operate, fund, or maintain the building, and it quickly fell into disrepair. Condemned by 1931, doors closed for 6 years. In 1937, as the first phase in a 3-year construction project to build the third auditorium on this site, and 80 years ago this month, under the new name, the Asheville Auditorium opened. It's the same room you sit in today. The design was quickly criticized with acoustic shortcomings, safety concerns, and logistical issues. In the late 1960s, Asheville City Council approved a plan to construct the Civic Center, the 7,000-plus seat arena, and the meeting space that adjoins, wrapped around the Asheville Auditorium. During the last year or so of the Civic Center's construction, the Asheville Auditorium was closed and renovated into the room you know today. The floor was angled, and the storage area underneath the stage was turned into the dressing rooms and green rooms with 7-foot ceilings that we use today. In December 1975, the room was reopened, rededicated as the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. And I ask, does this represent Asheville to you as our downtown's northern gateway? This is the vision that you see when you come through, right beside the Basilica. So as a division of the City of Asheville, our venue's operations and projects are working towards a common goal, City Council's Vision 2036. And this project can directly connect to 7 of those 8 key points. There's a need here at the facility and a vacancy in programming in the community. We've worked for years trying to create a conceptual design that you'll see tonight that will help fill that vacancy and address the needs of the current facility. There have been calls for renovations for decades from the media, guests, city staff, and event organizers. If you compare our guest amenities to cities like Nashville, Greenville, Durham, Charleston, or Greensboro, we're subpar. The back-of-house space lacks all of the needed amenities for current performers and artists. If you took the tour earlier, you saw an example of that. Loading access directly affects our ability to create diversity in our programming. Do you ever wonder why you see the same events advertised here year after year after year? They're the only ones that fit through the load-in door and up the incredibly steep ramp to get to our stage. Most importantly, this is a continuation of a process that reignited in 2015 when Asheville City Council allocated funds for a study to see if the building could structurally withstand a major renovation here in this room, since it was 75 years old. Over the years, many believed that a performance in this space could never sound great, that the building could not withstand a renovation, and that's simply not true. In 2016, we hired a team led by Threshold Acoustics out of Chicago to research and discover if the building could, one, structurally withstand a renovation, and two, become acoustically pleasing for non-amplified and amplified events. The results? The building can withstand a structural renovation and become acoustically pleasing. Moving forward, what are the recommendations? What can we do? So we can continue as is. We can do triage repairs only, which we've spent nearly $800,000 on in the last 3 years. If we opt to continue as is, there's no change in programming, there's no change in guest services, and no change in the performer experience. We can opt to a moderate renovation, conceptually designed by Threshold Acoustics, and includes minimal updates to seating and backstage. It does not include updates to the lobby space, restrooms, food service, or even elevators. And it was purely cosmetic and estimated at $42 million. Should we invest $42 million for a minimal improvement to experience and no change in programming? So in the year following Threshold Acoustics report, City Council approved $500,000 to use towards initial design and budgeting. We took that money, and in October 2018, we issued a request for qualifications to select a design team. The design teams that applied, there were 14 of them. We interviewed 4. We asked them to create a stakeholder needs analysis, a conceptual design, and a base budget. So who did we hire? We hired Earl Swenson Associates out of Nashville. They've run as the lead on numerous performance center renovations and construction projects. Most notably, the Skirmahorn Symphony Center and the Gilliard Center in Charleston, South Carolina. These are both amazing rooms. If you've been there, you know. So, to start the process with ESA, we created opportunities for stakeholder groups to meet directly with the design team and give them their thoughts. The team asked 5 key questions. They wanted to understand how each group utilized the room, what was important to them, what their challenges were, and what could improve. The takeaways? We need to update or expand everything. A core point taken away from the stakeholder groups, though, no one appreciates halfway efforts. Don't do it if you can't do it right. So simultaneously, we conducted a community survey. We asked you. It was the most responded to city survey that we can find. So what's that mean? People care. I can tell because this public meeting has so many people at it. Of over 3,000 responses, 74% of the people attend at least 4 events annually. So these are people that are actually coming here too. Only 13% are satisfied with the physical state of the facility. 69% feel like acoustics are average or worse. Hopefully you can hear me. And only 12% of people bring children to their events. But a really key result. For the community as a whole, how important do you feel it is to renovate the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium? 95% of survey respondents feel this project is important. 95%. So let's talk about what could be. Remember, ESA had a number of issues to address. And some final key points. What we're about to show you is not a renovation. It's a transformation. Other than a new roof and the acoustic shell and a few walls here, or not the acoustic shell, the exterior shell, and a few walls here and there, we're looking at a brand new facility. And so before we move on, picture your experience tonight. The front entrance, walking to the venue, your experience in the lobby. Take a look around at the current room so you can fully recognize the differences that you're about to see. And now you can take a look at what our future could be. So it's important to note that we asked the design team to be sure to respect the history of the room, and in any way they could include elements that connect to the current and past designs of downtown Asheville. Note the nested look in the glass facade. It's the same as the original design in the Asheville Auditorium. Note how the limestone marquee comes forward from the original entrance to the current entrance, and how we reincorporate the glass tower into that look. And also notice how we've eliminated signage from the front of the building. Perhaps instead of a sign in true Asheville form, we utilize a statue of public art that somehow incorporates the venue's name. Especially compared to the current, is this more representative of a northern gateway that you want to see in Asheville? So we've seen the outside. Let's take a walk through the inside. So our design team created the video you just saw, but again, in true Asheville form, I should let you know that the music was an instrumental version of a song by local artist Doc Aquatic playing with the Asheville Symphony, mixed and recorded right down the street at Echo Mountain Recording Studio, with additional video edits by the team at I Am AVL, who's here filming tonight's event, so that you can watch this again later and tell your friends. You've seen the video, so now let's take a closer look inside. The design team did an amazing job at addressing all of the requests of the stakeholder groups as a whole, the community, and the basic infrastructure needs of the facility. This has a stage design that can accommodate a maximum symphony performance with a 100-member orchestra and a 160-person chorus in front of the shell. It can accommodate the biggest theater concert tours out there and a significant amount of current Broadway touring properties. Symphony capacity of 1,866 and a concert capacity of 2,160. So in this transformed room, you need to imagine that the seat you're currently sitting in is 20 feet below you. Our most significant issues here are loading and acoustics. There's a 40-degree ramp that's nearly 12 feet long to get on this stage. Acoustically, the room's too wide and too short. So how can we fix both of those? Let's take the stage down to the trucks, where the street level is. By dropping the stage, add in the new acoustically transparent ceiling, and we're nearly 34 feet taller than we currently are. How do we fix the width? Sound and light lock hallways on either side of the room. So in a future, if somebody leaves to go to the restroom during a performance, they're going to open up the door into a quiet and dark hallway, not a loud and bright lobby, rendering the performance unaffected. For our non-symphony fans out there, a challenge point is people standing at their seats for shows. So this new room allows the first 4 rows to roll onto the orchestra pit, go down, and stow underneath the seats, creating a 200-plus person general admission section standing room right in front of the stage, a more exciting atmosphere for the bands that are on stage. And the best part, row 5 can see over their head. So for all performances, creation of these box seats on either side of the house creates some amazing views that you saw in that video. And they're loose chairs, so you can move them based on your desire if you're in that seat. And more important than anything probably, the new room is up to date and ADA compliance. So, thanks. Accessible seats on every level, which elevators can take you to. Hearing loops and other improvements also included. So the additional height also allows us to create 2 balconies and allows us to bring the seats closer to the stage. So the furthest seat here in the concept, right about here in the new space, 36 feet closer to the stage for the farthest seat in the house. And what do we do with the extra 30 feet plus in the lobby area? More common space, more lobby, nearly 3 times more food and beverage options, and I think you'll like this, 3 times more bathrooms. So a seated show at the Orange Peel or at the Dinah Wortham are roughly around 500 seats. The next step up in Asheville is 2,400 seats here. But we can now create a room, roughly 1,200 seats, or 1,700, or 2,100, by closing the balconies off. So we can create 3 rooms in one, opening up a greater level of programming that's not currently financially possible here, because a lot of bands don't want to play to 1,000 seats if they can see 1,000 empties. But if you can block them, they'll still come and play. So moving to the backstage areas, we want to bring the stage to the trucks. Easier and cheaper load-in allows for a greater diversity in programming. Broadway, for example, cannot exist in any form without 2 trucks at once and a quick and easy access on and off the stage. Additionally, we need more dressing room space since we're going to go right through it, dropping the stage. So we're proposing building a structure between the Fly House and the Duke Energy substation behind us, still allowing access for 2 trucks to load into our arena so we don't have any effect on future programming in the arena. And here's the question we all want to know, if you haven't seen the news already. What would it cost, and how would we fund it? So it would be $100 million. Nice round number. 86 million in construction costs, professional services, and other things ratcheted up to that $100 million number. Our design team utilized Venue Incorporated. They're a costing firm specific to art centers, and arguably the most accurate firm available. Their target is a 5% accuracy, and they're known for meeting or exceeding that accuracy consistently. And if we're trying to get to a level of a nationally recognized premier facility, a significant investment is necessary. So how do we fund a project like this? Examples throughout the country cover the spectrum of possibilities: 100% publicly funded, 100% privately funded, the vast majority are a mix. Food and beverage, car rental and occupancy taxes, and bonds are other typical revenue sources for projects that involve public sector. Here in Asheville, we're looking to first heavily explore philanthropic donations and corporate sponsorships. Occupancy taxes and governmental agencies are other obvious choices to look at, but we really want to focus on philanthropic donations and corporate sponsorships. Performing arts centers, similar to this proposed design, without an arena, located throughout the Southeast, routinely calculate annual economic impacts between 33 and 110 million, depending on the city and what they do. Last calculated in 2016, this complex as a whole, the arena and the auditorium, calculated a $42 million economic impact annually. The Thomas Wolfe is currently responsible for about 30% of our booked dates. Following the renovations that occurred in the arena, our economic impact jumped annually by 60%, or $15 million. Our average facility-wide attendance jumped by 76,000 people, or 46%, and our operating revenue growth has been nearly 50%. The center as a whole does still lose money, but at this point the loss is heavily influenced by the shortcomings and repair needs here at the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. Our current programming, as you can see, weighs pretty heavy in specific areas, and the theaters only utilize 79 days a year. These changes create a room that can handle greater amounts of programming in different types. Using models from throughout the country, we can create programs and connections throughout the community. We can work directly with Asheville City and Buncombe County schools to create programs that feed through the schools and end at performances here in this space. We've already spoken to Broadway presenters and ballet presenters that have programs in other markets that they can bring here, and we can use them. They want to bring them here. Other groups exist. There's interest in Asheville. We can partner with them. We can use their programs to enhance opportunities for our kids. Let's take advantage of something that's out there and works. Right now, we only host 1 or 2 events that are youth-focused a year. Revenue from performing arts and endowments are required to fund programs focused on the youth or other niche programs that might not have like a wide ticket appeal. So creating a room that is a direct competitor with Greenville, Durham, and Knoxville, that's how we can create an opportunity to create equitable programming focused on our community. So in conclusion, Asheville is a city with an amazing amount of cultural diversity focused on the arts. We need a crown jewel facility that represents our community. So what can you do? Visit transformthewolf.com. The site contains all current project information. The site has opportunities for you to provide us your feedback and your ideas. A first run of frequently asked questions are going to be available tonight immediately after this event. This presentation as well. The upcoming panel and a video of this presentation will be on the site soon. There will surely be public input sessions in the coming months. Come, follow in the media or on our site. Ultimately, a decision needs to be made as to what to do with this room. So give us your feedback so that we can help tailor a project that fits Asheville's desires. So I know this was a long presentation, but thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight. We really appreciate your interest, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks. What's up?
Chris, hang on for a second. In case you didn't know, if you work at the Civic Center or you're any way involved in it, they make us use the same tailor. And so we've got the same suit. We're coordinated tonight, in case anyone was wondering. Thanks, Chris. That was awesome.
Thanks, Roy.
Is everyone excited after seeing that awesome preview of the transformation? So next up, we'll ask our panelists to please start making their way up to the stage. I'm going to introduce a good friend of mine. She is the studio manager for Echo Mountain Studios here in Asheville, as a lot of you probably know that. If you don't know about that, you know about Connect Beyond Festival. She's also the founder of that. So Jessica Thomason, please welcome her to the stage. Jessica.
Oh, hey, Corey.
What are you doing?
Oh, you know, I'm just doing some Facebook posts and Twitter posts about this event tonight.
What are you posting?
Oh, you know, I'm just talking about how this is going to get funded by the ghost of Thomas Wolfe. You know, we're going to do a seance at city council meeting, bring Thomas Wolfe back to, you know, be the ghost sponsor of this event.
Are you sure that's a good idea, or?
Yeah. You know, it's just like, hold on, I'm almost done. Like, I just got to do like hashtag AVL event, hashtag ghosts for TWA, hashtag city council CS, you know, city council event. It's yeah. You know, it's like, you know how these things go with misinformation these days. You just sort of, you really got to get out ahead of it and like tell the narrative.
Smart. And Mayor will be talking to you about that later.
Yeah. It's like, I'm sure everybody will be cool with that. You know, maybe Zelda Fitzgerald will show up, you know, maybe George Vanderbilt, you know, it's important.
We have options. Here.
We do.
Ghost options. So you've put on events here before. Everybody remembers a couple years ago that awesome event with Gladys Knight and a little big town. Tell us though, what in your experience, what that was like, but also what do you think about this and what are your impressions of the presentation you saw?
I'm excited about it. I think it's something that's really exciting for our community as somebody who believes in the impact of the arts for social change and really tries to make that a part of our community. I think it's a big deal. Also, as doing events in this town, and as I've done here, was anybody at the Gladys Knight Little Big Town event here in yeah? So as you know, that show ran long, and part of that had to do with the how difficult the load in and load out is for big shows like that, and so that was a huge part of it. Not to mention we had somebody backstage that was actually injured from that, so which is a bummer. So, but. Thank you all for being here, and I'm excited to be able to have an opportunity to moderate this panel with this great group of people. So the point of this panel is to get an idea from the lens in which this diverse group of people work with of the value of transforming the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. And so I will run down here. Oh, I got somebody else's notes here. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that, but maybe, we'll see. All right, so we will start with, let me do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to just pose some questions to the group here. And so first we have Terry Bellamy, who is the Director of Community and Economic Development for Madison County, past Mayor of City of Asheville. We have Laura Mitchell, who is the Arts Education Specialist for Buncombe County Schools. David Whitehill, Executive Director of the Asheville Symphony, who gets a lot of use out of this space. We have the Chancellor of UNCA, Dr. Nancy Cable. We have Clark Duncan, the Senior Vice President of Economic Development for Asheville Chamber of Commerce. And the lead singer and guitarist for Grammy-winning Steep Canyon Rangers, Woody Platt. So thank you all for being here. And I want to start with Dr. Cable. So UNCA is one of the top public liberal arts universities in the country. What would this facility mean for the school in terms of education opportunities, arts programming, and attracting students and faculty?
Well, we're strong advocates and an anchor in the Asheville and greater surrounding communities for advancing all performing arts in all forms, both educationally and for the artistic creativity of this community. We also span and support the span of life ages from young children all the way to the elderly who have options to do this. So any improvement in a venue as strong and important and centrally located, and frankly, tonight I've learned historically significant, is very important to the work that we do on campus and the number of students that we recruit annually, the faculty who choose to live in Asheville. So an improvement in partnership with you all that allows us to be one of the great anchors in performing arts together with the Thomas Wolfe facility is a positive for UNC Asheville.
Great, thank you. And so, Terry, I want to ask you, you have a pretty unique perspective in the fact that you've served and worked in the region's population center, and now you're working in a more rural county. So what does this facility mean for the region, both from what you've seen from your past work in the city and where you are now?
So for 14 years out here, the city of Asheville's daytime population doubles in size. And we would say, well, what does that mean? That means we would hear at that time, oh, we have tourists and people who come here to go shopping and to go to the doctor. But I've learned since then, it's more than that. So working in economic development in Madison County is giving me a different lens. I want to dig into where are our people in Madison County working, where they're spending their money, where they're spending their time. Currently in Madison County, we have a little over 10,000 people who are in the working population, working age. Over 5,000 of them make Buncombe County's economy strong. They come here to work. And when they come here to work, they go shopping, They buy gas, they go to the doctor, they spend a lot of money in this community. So I looked at the other communities around Asheville. For Western North Carolina and the more closer counties, economic development is a $24 billion industry. And when you look at the city of Asheville's and Buncombe County's share of that, a lot of that is closer to $6 billion. So Asheville's economy and Buncombe County's economy relies on its neighbors. This type of facility will assist in the quality of life, not just for the residents of Asheville and Buncombe County, but also neighboring communities, because they bring their children here for school trips. They have an opportunity to visit here for the wonderful experience Corey talked about earlier, as well as individuals who love the arts. This facility is one of the things that will not only positively impact the city of Asheville and Buncombe County's brand, it helps the entire region's brand to know that we have a regional facility that serves the top quality shows that you would see internationally, and more importantly, you would see in communities that have thriving arts community and services.
Great, thank you. And so to stay on that topic, I want to talk to you, Clark. So we know that music and performing arts are economic drivers for Asheville. We've seen music be a focus for our Tourism and Development Authority. Can you talk to us a little bit, as Terry started to talk about, what seeing this transformation would mean in terms of economic impact for the city?
Sure. So I think there are two real impacts. The first is in terms of measurable economic data. We, together, actually, you and I, our organizations performed a study 2 to 3 years ago about the economic impact of the music and performing arts industry. And that data tells us that this sector employs over 3,500 of our neighbors here in Buncombe County. So everyone from people that make the instruments, to those that record and produce the music, to those that book the acts, to the performing artists themselves, that generates close to $100 million in labor income annually for families of Buncombe County. So that's real, and that's very measurable. The other thing, honestly, that gets me very excited when I think about the new Wolfe is it is economic infrastructure. The same way we have invested public and private sector dollars in our universities, in our community colleges, in our greenways, in the Asheville Art Museum most recently, in the Asheville Airport. These are the kind of amenities that will attract, that aren't just serving us as a great quality of life amenity, but will help our next generation, my son, Terry's son at Asheville High, Dr. Cable's students, choose to build their career in Asheville, choose to build their families and their careers in Asheville. And I think that kind of infrastructure is incredibly important.
And so just to bring that a little bit closer to home to explain, so as I said, I make 100% of my income from music. That's from Echo Mountain, that's from producing festivals and events, and my own festival that I created 2 years ago, Connect Beyond, in the first year, I put $45,000 into the community from a 3-day event. I'm not talking about that's what came from me paying creators and music venues and locally owned hotels and graphic designers, print companies in town. The second year it was $65,000. This is just a little festival that I created, and that's not including the other money that happens from people go out and eat at local restaurants, right? I've been here for over 20 years, and I've waited tables in this town and have definitely made better money when there's a show going on at the Thomas Wolfe when I was working at the Kumi Sushi Bar on Wall Street. That's no longer. And so, I say that as in to bring it to sometimes economic impact could feel like this thing that's oh, it's great, and there's these, sometimes, feels like inflated numbers, but the fact of the matter is that I'm just a little festival that's got, 600 people at it, that's growing, that hopefully someday will be in this space and filling all, 2,400 seats and imagining what that impact would do. So I just wanted to point that out, and not to mention that, even before we did this being part of this economic impact study a couple years ago, I did a panel for some event, because I always get asked to be a part of these things, right? Where it's, people are like, music is cool, right? They want to have it as part of their thing. And I always say it's called the music business for a reason. It's not called the music fun time party hour, right? And that's part of that is that the arts actually make up $802 billion of the GDP for the United States. And so that's all arts, but performing arts is a huge part of that. And also you mentioned about your kids and Terry's kids and a number of folks that have kids in the community and what that means. So I want to ask Laura, as an educator, so what kind of opportunities could this proposed concept open for both students and teachers?
Thanks, Jessica. Well, we have over 24,000 students in Buncombe County schools, and we have a thriving arts program. We've actually added more arts positions than cut them. So it's actually a growing program in Buncombe County schools. And I imagine the students sitting out there watching performances, but also being on the stage performing and working with visiting artists, and the opportunities that Chris talked about, where they could actually have workshops with the performing artists and experience some real world-class acts. Our students have gotten to experience wonderful things here. We have a great partnership with the symphony and with Leaf, and there's many opportunities. We love our community partnerships. So if we could partner with Thomas Wolfe and be able to have more programming and also professional development for our teachers. There's 3 parts of a comprehensive arts education, and that is art education, what you would get in the classroom, arts exposure, which our students desperately need more of, and then arts integration, where you're including the core curriculum through the arts and teaching the core curriculum through the arts. Many of our students learn best when they're singing and dancing and creating. And creating is the highest of Bloom's taxonomy. It's where it's really going to stick. So we're talking not just about transforming the wolf, but we're talking about transforming our students. And in turn, it transforms our community. And what bigger message to our students that the arts are an important part of our lives and our culture in Asheville and Buncombe County in Western North Carolina than to transform this facility and to show them and to bring them here and to provide opportunities. So we're super excited to have this opportunity, and we hope to have a lot of support for it.
That's great, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for, Asheville's one of those towns where tourism's our main driver, right? We all know that. And so I like to say this is a bring your own job town. But I think there's a lot to be said for the future of Asheville working in the arts. And that's one of the things that I love about it, is that I feel like people can work in the performing arts that don't necessarily have the ability to go to college, but can find some way to work in especially when it comes to live events. And I see that all the time. There's so many people that live in Asheville that have an opportunity that didn't necessarily do the traditional school path, that are now working and going all around the country, working events and working for festivals or working for organizations like AC Entertainment, which you may or may not know, that's based in Knoxville, that does Bonnaroo and Forecastle and Highwater. And so there's a great opportunity, I think, to train our young folks as well. And then also people that aren't necessarily in the traditional job pool, that give them an opportunity to do something that's meaningful and see the world and come back to Asheville. So speaking of doing work like that, Woody. So Woody and I have known each other a long time, actually. Well before both of us were doing what we're doing, sitting on a porch in Brevard, one of us playing, one of us listening. But so you tour all over, and you get to play in all sorts of places. And you have a show coming up, right?
We do, yeah. We have a show. We just announced a show in the spring, which we're going to do outdoors at the salvage station.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about the Thomas Wolfe. You played here, right?
No.
Okay.
And I was sitting here thinking to myself, why not? And I looked out and thought, oh, because we always made the decision not to play here.
Why?
Because we were given one opportunity annually to play a show locally. And we would discuss it as a band. Where's the place that we want to go and have a really diverse audience, young and old, that is fitting for what we do? So we started doing a seated show and a standing show at the Orange Pillar, 2 standing shows and 1 seated show so we could cater to everybody. And that became sort of exhausting because it was multiple days. And the Thomas Wolfe kept coming up in band discussions and continuously was shot down based on fan experience and band experience. So I'm absolutely in favor of increasing the experience from the band from the stage back, and then from the band on stage connecting with the audience. And the designs look incredible to me. We tour all over and we see so many venues that have been refurbished, remodeled, brand new, state-of-the-art venues, and then we sort of break it down by markets, major markets, secondary markets, and then you think about what venues are in those markets. I think Asheville has become a major market, but it doesn't have a major venue. So people are going to the Peace Center. You know, that's where they go. Or they go to the DPAC in Durham. And this room, with making it shallower and a little narrower and a little more sloped, could feel as good as those 2 rooms. And I think a lot of those shows would come to Asheville as opposed to going to Greenville. I definitely think this is more of a major market in the eyes of people who are booking these touring acts, not just music, but theater and other performances that tour. And the DPAC, they're all very similar sized, 22 to 2,600. And based on ticket prices, that number doesn't even matter. You know, if you change the ticket price $2 one way or the other. So they're equal sized. So I think this venue is in need of an overhaul, and I look forward to standing on the stage when it gets overhauled. Or now.
And I think that's an important point to make. I've been fortunate to work with over 300 bands in the last 16 years, more than that really. And people love to come to Asheville, but it definitely becomes a crux question when it comes to finding a room to play in because of the challenges that are with this room. And so it's always one of those things that when I'm looking up even a tour for myself of just being a music fan, and I see that people are choosing Durham over Asheville, I'm like, oh. But a lot of times it's like it's not about the audience or the demographic of people. It's about the room to be able to play in and be efficient, because this is how most musicians make their money these days. I mean, our industry has been turned upside down from digital streaming. And so bands rely so heavily on touring for their income, and so they really got to be efficient in the way that they do things. And so now I want to talk to David Whitehill, somebody who uses this room more often than most. And first, now if you don't know, I want to congratulate David on this award that he just won. He was recognized by the musical America Worldwide as one of the top 30 musical professionals of the year. Which is no small feat, and I can tell you that I've had the opportunity to work with David over the last few years, and it's so amazing and refreshing for someone who doesn't have a background in classical music to work with somebody who's so forward-thinking and really bridging the gap between all different kinds of music. So as somebody who uses this room all the time, can you talk about some of the challenges that you face in this space and what the impact of this renovation would be on the symphony?
Well, thank you, Jessica, and thank you for being here tonight. I can share with you, the reason for the success of the symphony and much that has been going on in our community culturally is because there are few places like Asheville where our daily experience is one of creativity, natural beauty, craft, and music. Those are the reasons my family moved to Asheville. It's the reason many of you chose Asheville. And my work experience here has been among the most gratifying thing I have ever done. I'm so proud to say, working at the Asheville Symphony, we've never lost sight of our core values as a cultural and community service organization. And we are continued to committed in controlling our own future, serving our community wisely and well, and bringing the message of music, not just classical, but music to the forefront, keeping music as the focal point. A music hall like the one proposed is not just bricks and mortar. A music hall is an instrument. An instrument carries a voice, and a voice is a beacon. This music hall can be an instrument, a voice, a beacon, and a symbol of our community's cultural identity. Our community, as Woody said, is ready for a music hall that is excellent orally and visually, supporting a diverse range of music groups and performing art forms. This music hall transformation offers a better, more intimate experience appropriate in size and form for traditional and contemporary music groups and performing arts groups, enhancing the quality, condition, utilization, amenities, and functionality of the facility while broadening the uses and fostering an environment that is accessible, inclusionary, and welcoming will benefit all. As I mentioned in the beginning, we choose to live here, to work, to play, to create, sharing in a feeling of passionate guardianship for this community. Like the Asheville Symphony, this facility is on an amazing trajectory, and I'm eager as a leader of a cultural institution and as a member of the Asheville community to have the opportunity to grow this vital cultural and community asset. Let's amplify the messages you've heard today from all of us and transform the Wolf.
Thanks, David. So I'll just leave you with this, is that, as a citizen of Asheville, and I love this town, I've been here for over 20 years, that we have a lot of things to work on, and we know that as a community. And I think that arts can help to raise an awareness and open a dialogue and spark some growth and innovations for some of the things that we need in this community. By all means, it's not going to solve every issue that we have, but I think that supporting the arts is a great way to start. And we don't have time for a Q&A. Corey's going to come back out and talk about some next steps for community input. And I don't want to speak for everyone because some folks have to get home to their children. I am happy to be in the lobby to talk for a few minutes afterwards if anybody wants to talk about, ask any questions about the ways that the arts impact the community that I'm involved in, or other folks that can stick around, great. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here, and I'll let Corey tell you more about next steps.
Thank you, Jessica, and thanks so much to our panelists for taking the time to be here today. In closing, I will say that remember that there will be additional project updates and information that can be found at transformthewolf.com. Transformthewolf.com. Please stay on there for any updates. This will be your one-stop shop for any transformational project issues and inquiries. In addition, there will be public information and input sessions in the coming months. Those dates have not been set yet, but they will be, so the public will have more input outside the community survey that we talked about to have input on this. And I feel like I'd be bereft when I've got this stage and a microphone, and I feel like it'll have more authority if I do it while I'm doing this. Madeline and Shep, behave tonight, listen to your mother, go to bed on time, okay? Thank you all for coming. We look forward to this. Please go online and please support this project. Thank you.